Our audience at Inbound Logistics is smart. Too smart not to keep up with what's moving and shaking in logistics and supply chain management. So here we are to tackle some of the questions that are top of mind for the Inbound Logistics audience. 3, what's the biggest mistake you see companies make when they take their first steps on their digital transformation journey?
It's absolutely rushing into something.
They look at too many vendors.
They're not looking at what we would classify as purposeful innovation.
You know, trying to take whatever it is that's out on the floor and shoehorn their operation into it.
Trying to really tackle the hard stuff first, instead of really understanding the technology.
Probably the biggest mistake is that they bite off too much. They're not, they want to go from a level 1 warehouse to a level 5 warehouse and make a huge leap. And you really
doing things incrementally and
get people comfortable with automation and changes in process, and so that's the biggest mistake. It's just biting off too much.
I think it's very easy to get caught in this is what we used to do or this is what we've always done. I think you really have to do a deep dive into what's out there. I think AI is really helping us online to better, let's say, collect and to direct us on a path towards alternative technologies. Don't get caught up in the hill, well, this is what we used to do, this is how we've always done it. I think that is a very dangerous paradigm, and you need to shift out of that.
Okay, so the main mistakes is just, in my opinion, is customizing too much what they need. So is verticalize too much on their needs, thinking that they know too much their business. Because of course we cannot, we are not the owners of the business of our customers, but we know how to bring solutions to solve their needs. Okay, so the main mistakes what we see is that the customer are making too much verticalization of the solutions. Okay, making them too deep on their business. In that case, you are too much tight with for example, software installation. You are too much tight inside the solution. Okay, and this is the biggest probably mistake or issue that can have customers in the future.
Well, there are several. I think one is that they're coming from the technology angle too much and not really think about, okay, what can actually digitalization, AI bring as a value to my customers. Then also I see that companies work a lot in silos when it comes to digitalization. The engineering department works on their own, the supply chain department work on their own, and there's not kind of a agenda and a architecture that is actually first in place to think about how can digitalization serve our entire company. That there's not kind of a North Star that people are working towards. And then also I think people underestimate the cultural change that is needed to digitalize. People are worried about losing their jobs, really like Johnny said, kind of thinking a lot on their own benefit instead of how can it benefit my customers, how do I need to change my business to really be able to sell tomorrow. And then the last thing I think is really to think about what could be the recurring revenue models, models that weren't there before or that weren't possible before. What could digital solutions bring in terms of recurring revenue, digital services, the whole new business models that were not there before? A lot of people don't think that way when they start their journey.
No, I think everyone's trying to figure out the right thing for their company. So I don't know if I'd say that there are mistakes that they're making, but I think oftentimes people are looking always at a dollar figure. And so what typically happens is, what is your competition doing and what are your customers' expectations? And so as you take a look at those types of things, the nice thing about AutoStore is we have the ability to do all of those things in a very, very cost-effective way. Our payback is typically 18 months, and you're getting multi-million-dollar systems that can basically help every customer, the largest to the smallest.
Yeah, I think that's exactly well said. I think the key is just working together and see what we can solve for the customers, and that always helps better than trying to figure out alone.
Yeah, it starts with your data, right? So I think not having a strategy around data and how do you coalesce all your data together in one place so you can tell a singular story around it. It's kind of why we've implemented what we have with Command Center. is to have a single source of truth with data across the entire operation. With fragmented data, it's hard to get real visibility and real actionable AI into your operation.
Sure, I think one of the biggest challenges that we see companies make is assuming that there's a one-size-fits-all to digital transformation. We work with customers, global companies, that can have needs-based requirements, although being under the same umbrella of the company, but can be completely different or interdependent, if you will, between sites. And a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to our business, there is not a one-size-fits-all.
Sure, I think one of the biggest challenges that we see is that change management aspect as they move into this new world, is that automation is not automating the exact same process that was done manually. It's bringing in a new process to do that automation and making sure that you are ready for that and ready for that change and working with the processes to afford that change to be the best that it can be.
That's a good question. A lot of it is adapting for automation or modifying your existing process for automation. So we've got kind of an old saying, you can design for automation from scratch, or you can modify your existing process for automation. Now, we do a lot to help make that adaptation as minimal as possible, but having the expectation that you will have to alter maybe certain aspects of what you're doing with your business now in order to accommodate rapid deployment automation is an expectation I think a lot of people need to consider.
The one we see constantly is the desire to start with technology. So look at a project, look at a problem and say what technology is the best fit. The inverse of that is start with data, understand operations, understand pain points, then you go to software and understand how software drives that operation, and then you get to technology. And that tends to be the longest term solution that provides flexibility and avoids some of those pitfalls.
I would say it's a great question. One of the mistakes we see, right, we're all used to using smartphones and iPhones and Android devices in our daily life, but sometimes in this more harsh environment, they think, well, let's go to an all-touch environment in a warehouse, a manufacturing environment, a distribution environment, right? And there's real limitations with that, right? You need something where there's physical keys, something that can operate with gloves, more tactile response, right? More harsh environments, indoor, outdoor environments, yard management, right? Inclement weather conditions, right? So that's why, and we'll talk about it, we've introduced a next generation of our keyboard-based PDT products, right, to fit that unique market need.
Trying to take whatever it is that's out on the floor and shoehorn their operation into it. Each one of these companies that's here at the show, they've all got incredible capabilities and technology, but it's really the fitting that to the customer's operation so that you're not forcing them to change the operation in order to stay on product. And it's a balancing act that everybody follows. It's really making sure that we as solutions providers understand the business and be able to affect positive change rather than the last thing we want is somebody to stand there and be like, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that. We want to work with them to make sure that it's adopted.
Really not understanding their processes. So they jump to, let's put some software on top of this, let's automate this. But if you don't understand the process and the real problem you're trying to solve, it's really hard to get the result you want if you don't know what the problem was that you're trying to solve in the first place.
Biggest mistake is absolutely rushing into something. So you think about an organization that is managing the yard with pen and paper and spreadsheets. I always say I've never met a company that's bad at managing the yard because in logistics we get stuff done. That's just what we do. By the time an organization comes to us, they're so good at managing the yard, they have outgrown whatever manual processes worked until they stopped working. So we come in to help them really level up. So I would say the biggest kind of mistake is saying, look, we're using pen and paper today. How do we get to robots in the yard? You go, well, there's a journey here. There's steps that you need to take. Incremental. Starts with perhaps digitization. Let's put a tablet in everybody's hand, right? Then you look at, how do we automate movement so that nobody has to be babysitting the system, but instead the system is managing itself. And then let's talk about AI. That, I would say, second biggest mistake is going to vendors that are known for being very good at one product and expecting them to be good at another product. There's a temptation in logistics to say, hey, one size fits all. We can, grab this one vendor and they're going to help us with everything. I think you're seeing a lot of movement now at the show where people go, well, what if I found the right vendor for this specific thing? So that serviced us very well. You know, I wake up every day, all I think about is yard management. That's what we do.
I think there's something to be said for physical AI that has been scaled up, you know, beyond just like a handful of units in a pilot or something. I think there's something to be said for products that have customers, like robotics, cutting edge products that have customers that are using this nationwide. And then, you know, you can be assured of the ROI and the reliability of the products, which is really important for, you know, for the business case.
The same mistake we've seen for years and years, which is failing to recognize that this is a people, process, and technology. The technology is really cool, but if the folks don't get it and they can't leverage it, it's not going to work. So it's back to the basics.
Biggest mistake is technology. And the reason why I'm saying it is because many companies, when they come to events like this one, to MODEX, they have in their mind they need technology because everything is changing, evolving, supply chain, logistics, and customer demands. And when they walk the floor, they're overwhelmed with technology, right? So you cannot buy technology just because it's popular, it's new, and the dashboard and looks beautiful, and they have a beautiful user interface. You need to think first about your operations. You need to think about your warehouse, the people on the floor, your team, what you need and how you see your operation from now in 12 months, maybe in 2 years. And then you can go and select the technology that can support your operations, not the other way around. Technology is not here to define your operation. You need to find the technology that can support your operations.
I think this is a universal thing, and I don't think it's changed forever in large projects, is change management. Companies still expect the technology to solve everything when it's really, it is a complete team effort, and change management is the one thing that we see companies continually make that mistake, not understanding the impact that this change has on the floor with thousands of their workers, and making sure that that gets adopted the right way.
Understanding what they're getting into, right? I mean, so I had this conversation last night at dinner. A lot of people play around with Claude or ChatGPT and think they understand AI. So executives in boardrooms are saying, hey, look, AI has to be a component of whatever solution we deploy, but they haven't brought in AI engineers to really understand what does AI really mean in application, and how do we build the knowledge base to best take advantage and deploy it. They're just embarking on this AI journey, and they really need to build a knowledge base and really understand what they're getting into before they begin that journey.
So I'm doing this for a living since 25 years, right? So I know the market very well. I've worked for a few of our competitors, and customers always make the same mistake, right? They look at too many vendors. They all promise land, say, yeah, we can do it all. What customers should focus on is, and that's what I usually do, give me your top 3 pain points. What are the things that really keep you up at night? What are the real headaches you have in your business? What is it that you cannot do today because your system does not allow you to do it? So a new customer comes in with a requirement, and you still have space in your warehouse, you still would like to profitably grow, and then you have to say, I'm sorry, I don't even know the cost, how to fulfill, or I can't fulfill your requirements. So give us the top 3 pain points, and then what we do is we build it in the system within 24 hours, configured in the system, ready for the customer to see it. So don't ask 1,200 lines, can you do this, can you do that? Yeah, don't talk to a warehouse management provider if you say, can you do inbound, can you do outbound, can you pick, can you pack, right? Give us the real hard stuff, and we show you how we do.
Yes, so what I would see selfishly is think about the whole program up front. We're seeing a lot more of that, but every once in a while, a system will be designed and, oh, what about the tote? Or how does it interact with the vision system, and how are we going to detect it with the laser eyes? It's thinking it all up front as much as you can before going and embarking on the journey. Scoping out a full plan is key, and something that we're excited when it gets done, and it definitely generates more success.
Neglecting the basics. Bad data will not give you good outcome. Bad data or not enough data, late data. If you don't have real-time data, if you don't have good quality data, the recommendations that your systems will spit out is just not going to be as good as it could be. if you were to invest in collecting and capturing the data if and when it happens.
These digital transformations automatically are assumed as IT projects, and I think the truth of it is they need to be business-wide initiatives, right? I think companies that get it right, they put together a clear vision of what that end state needs to be. They spend the time with their department leads within their functional groups and their cross-functional teams and put together processes that they ultimately feel will meet those organizational goals. Once they've done that, then you choose the technology to move forward with your digital transformation. If you don't, you wind up spending a lot of money digitizing inefficiencies, and ironically, causing more complexity than value.
I think the biggest thing is they're not looking at what we would classify as purposeful innovation. Starting with what's the problem, what's the question that they want to answer, what are they trying to solve, and then working back to technology. They seem to be starting from the technology and saying, now I'm going to go find my problem.
I think they start too high, right? They focus on big scaling automation rather than focusing on the low-hanging fruit, and that's many times what we see people, they fail. They go too big rather than just start small, and expand from all the small successes.
Probably the biggest mistake I'm seeing is this: as they embraced AI early on, we thought more data meant better, and what we're getting is more and more and more bad data. So where we're hoping that they go with this is, it's good that AI is there to support you, but get the data right, get it clean, get it good information, because it doesn't matter if I have to sift through 5x or 10x more information. That's just going to take me longer to say, you know what, I still don't have the minimum things I need to move us to the next step. So we're still running through a lot of iterations. We're still trying to get to that clean bit of data. But what I'd really push our customers for is sometimes less is more. Let's just make sure it's high quality before we just give a lot of extra lines of information.
Well, we're actually standing under a sign here we talk about with the top reasons that 4.0 initiatives and pilots fail, right, in terms of scalability.
Yep.
And I think it's because what we end up seeing is that most pilots are focused on a specific use case attainment, and they're usually practiced within a very small subset of, let's say, a manufacturing or warehousing facility. And what they're not realizing is that without the proper infrastructure in place at the connectivity layer, that when they try to expand that pilot or that proof of concept or whatever you want to call it beyond that individual place it was used, they end up finding that they fail, right? Because they're not looking ahead, first and foremost, at how the infrastructure of data is going to be delivered to the systems it needs. And so we as Belden like to come in and make sure to remind our customers that, hey, if you're not quite familiar with how you need to create this connectivity layer within your facility, connecting disparate systems, islands of automation, Belden has services and products and solutions available to help our customers do just that.
Well, in our area of the supply chain, there's still a lot of old school methods being used. And so we get a lot of, I want to get all now, I want everything. And where they're coming from, where they want to go, is that the gap is too big.
Yeah.
So they got requirements have to come down, expectations have to come down a little bit, but also they have to start. A lot of companies get stuck in decision paralysis. So we have to get reasonable expectations and then go for it. And then get a plan, phase it out, work it in, aim for that end goal, but don't think you're going to get there in the first year, but start, get going.
Companies are not understanding their current processes. They're starting on these modernization journeys. You have to start with the WMS. They're sitting there and we need this, we need that, but they can't yet whiteboard their own processes that exist on their warehouse floor. They don't have a true understanding of how they operate today to get to where they need to go tomorrow.
I would say that most companies, at least that we talk to, they really don't have a digital strategy. They're kind of just figuring it out, right, and starting on that journey. Like the extent of some companies are like, well, we use ChatGPT, that's our strategy. Like, well, it's kind of more to it than just that. From a mistakes perspective, I would say that, probably being a little too aggressive and moving a little too fast and honing in one specific thing that maybe was the way to go 10 years ago, and not maybe doing a little more due diligence and pausing and talking to others, right, to really evaluate who's the right fit, what's the right technology that's going to give me the most flexibility in the next 5-10 years, right? Because you ask that question, like, what's changed 5 years ago? Like, well, what's it gonna be in 5 years from now?
Yeah, sure.
Well, how's my business going to be different in 5 years from now? So really, I want to invest in something that's going to be flexible, that can allow me to adapt, rather than something very rigid and immovable in a sense.
Well, it's all about data. Okay. Walked hundreds of plants, and every single time, it's not quite as much as the bigger OEMs, et cetera. It's typically more the people that don't necessarily have the budgets, operating on tighter margins, et cetera, that they just don't control their data. So when you walk out and they want you to automate a process, they're almost looking at it more as you're just displacing the transport and you're not fully automating a process. So from a digital transformation standpoint, I always go out and talk to them and say, you got to control your data before you start worrying about digital twins and automation. You got to get the data under control first. So
yeah, bad data in.
That's right, bad automation. Can't automate a bad process.
Yeah, it's a very good topic. So one time, a giant monopoly company, a monopoly FMCG company visited our headquarters.
Right.
Their vice president of the procurement sit there and asked us that, tell me that why we need your robotics. Yeah, so a lot of people give different answers, but I just say one thing, that robotics is the essential part for your digitalization. So that means without robotics, all the things cannot be achieved. So some mistakes that people made is they just want an answer from 0 to 100.
Sure.
They just skip the process. They think that, oh, give me a solution that you can help me to solve all the problems. But when I look at their request, all the data they collected is manually. Then how can you guarantee the data, the SKU reporting they share with us is correct, which can be directly be used in the automatic solution? Yeah, so I think that one word I'd like to share with the audience here is the progressive automation.
Okay.
That means step by step, understand your situation. Not everybody can do the industries 4.0 directly. Maybe you are still 1.0, okay?
Yeah, sure.
So just to try one solutions, have a very good ROI suitable for your case, and also we will work with you together to assess the risks. We will evaluate that what's your financial risks, what's the throughput we are able to achieve. And one more thing is we not only look for 1 year. Usually when we plan some solution, we will give an answer to customer that how it look like 3 years later. For example, in our solution here, we have the pallet handling and also the tow handling.
Right.
Actually, these two solutions can merge together like a mixed solution. For example, pallet handling is very good for the full pallet in and out, especially for B2B business. But some customers, they also have like 10% or 20% B2C. So they use the tow handling to do the picking job. But at nighttime, we do the outbound, and at daytime we do outbound, and in nighttime, this pallet system, they are able to replenish the SKU in the tote system.
Okay.
So that's one of the trends.
Yeah.
And we use this story to tell the customer that we hope that they can have a whole picture about the tool of the automation. It's not like you want to do everything today. It's not possible.
Right.
And certainly we want to make money. We want to make
course.
business. But we cannot sell anything to the people that who they do not need.
Sure.
Yeah. So we have this kind of thinking and think for the customers.
The one thing I've seen probably that stands out most to me is that people do it in a fragmented way.
Okay.
So what they do is they bring different areas into their business of automation at different times, and it's not all talking to itself.
Right.
So you end up with a disjointed operation, if you like, rather than one centralized brain that's driving a nervous system for the whole operation that everything links into. So I think that's sort of what's happening, is people are trying to put jigsaw pieces together at the moment rather than maybe blanket the whole operation.
Yeah.
And then that actually, from customers are speaking to me, sometimes they expect it to speed up and improve efficiencies.
Sure.
And it can have a reverse impact if you've not got it all talking to each other and working seamlessly.
Right.
Yeah, biggest mistake to me is just trying to ultimately maybe start with too complex applications, trying to really tackle the hard stuff first instead of really understanding the technology, getting it implemented in a simple, repetitive, ideally horizontal movement to be able to really grow together, have your operations and just the overall culture embracing automation begin to mold around that, and then scaling up from there. I'd say that's probably the biggest mistake, just trying to bite off too much too quick. Get started and then scale up and do that with confidence.
Well, first of all, we're very happy to see that the MODEX is growing.
Sure, yeah.
It really became a huge show, I would say one of the most important shows in the intralogistics. So we were really glad to see that. Secondly, also I would say that having new companies and exhibiting at the MODEX, it's very it's astonishing.
Yeah, it is.
So many new companies, national, international, being part of MODEX, being part of MHI, and also exhibiting. So that's also something worth to mention.
Right.
And at last but not least, to see the development in certain fields, especially in, I would say, robotics and AI, that is really, really astonishing.
Yeah, so I think sometimes they just don't know what they don't know, right?
Of course, yeah.
And so being able to really understand what the problem is and not just throw tools at it, but understand what are the right tools for the job that needs to get done.